And indeed, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. And we're going to be talking about an important topic today, reconnecting sellers to buyers, which as a title implies that we were once connected and we aren't. So we're going to be talking about that. We're going to talk about why is it important for sellers to be connected to buyers? And then the growing divide. What's happened to disconnect us? We'll be looking at the two drivers. One, a lot of people know about, the other one, equally important and perhaps not so often talked about. Then we'll look at, so how do we reconnect sellers with buyers? And then I'm going to offer a 5-point strategy in terms of what are the 5 things you should really focus on in order to reconnect your sellers to your buyers. As Anthony said, we'll be doing this in 30 minutes. And then your option is to leave at that time or to stay for discussion and Q&A. So that's the format. So let's start with this, one of my favorite quotes from Peter Drucker: the purpose of a company is to, and for the sake of time, I won't ask you to fill in the blanks, but do so in your own mind. So what is the purpose of a company? The very purpose of a company. Drucker said this back in one of his first books, and shortly before he passed, he was interviewed by Fortune, said the same thing. What is the purpose of a company? The purpose of a company, let's see, it is to create and keep a customer. That's Peter Drucker, creating and keeping a customer. Now that may surprise you because a lot of people think the purpose of a company is to create a return, a profit for shareholders. Drucker addressed that by saying, yeah, a company must make a profit, but that's not the purpose of a company. That he said that making a profit is like breathing is for life. But if you don't breathe, you're not going to live. He said, so if you're not going to make a profit, you're not going to live. But the purpose of life is not to breathe. So he suggests the purpose of a company is not to make a profit. It's to create and keep a customer. That to me is refreshing because it places the emphasis firmly on sales and marketing. It's the sales and marketing folk who are on the front line of creating and keeping a customer. So let's ask ourselves that question. What's the primary role of sales and marketing? So yes, it's to create and keep a customer. What is the primary role? Now we do workshops and we ask this question and people come and develop a relationship, provide product information, understand a customer, all of these things. Those are the things that we do, the activities. But what is the primary role for sales and marketing? After giving this a lot of thought, I'm going to suggest it's to change the course of events. It's to make something happen that otherwise would not. That means that if customers are going to buy from us anyway, if we've got a lineup at the door of people waiting to buy, we really don't need sales and marketing. We need order takers, we need customer service maybe, but we don't really need sales and marketing. Sales and marketing is all about changing the course of events, getting somebody to buy that otherwise was not going to buy, getting somebody to buy from you that may have bought from somebody else, getting somebody to buy this quarter versus next quarter. And if that sounds manipulative, it is, but hopefully, and I underscore this, hopefully it's positive that the customer walks away from the experience feeling that they've experienced value, that value is being created. So sales and marketing is to change the course of events. So if we look at that, in order to change the course of events, surely we need an intimate knowledge of the customer. Or perhaps if I talk about it from marketing, an intimate knowledge of the market, but we need an intimate knowledge of the market or the intimate knowledge of the customer, or how can we change the course of events? And then obviously our goal is to bring more creative, valuable, meaningful solutions to the table. Well, the challenge we've got is sellers have become disconnected from buyers. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in just a moment. And it's only getting worse. So the solution, and why are we talking about this today, is we've got to find a way to reconnect sellers back with buyers. So let's talk about why aren't we connected? So why don't buyers rush to talk to salespeople? Well, when was the last time you were in a retail store? You may have been buying who knows what, and a salesperson came up to you and said, "Good morning, can I help you?" The natural thing is say, "No, I'm okay, thank you." This is one of the biggest challenges that retail face. And it's interesting because that's such a transactional B2C example, but the very same thing is going on in every world, that the salesperson is there. How can I help you? No, thank you very much. I don't need to talk to a salesperson. So why don't they want to talk to a salesperson? Because they perceive there's no value in doing so. So if they believe that a salesperson can offer them something valuable and relevant to their immediate solution, they would talk to us. Now I'm going to use those words a lot, valuable and relevant. If they perceive that a salesperson is not going to bring something that's valuable and relevant, why talk to them? Or when they absolutely must talk to us. So when a buyer must talk to us for whatever reason, they will eventually talk to us. But that's not the case. That's not happening. There's this divide where buyers are not connected to sellers. The two reasons. I committed that I was going to share two reasons. Two things, self-serve and the growing complexity of the end-to-end buying journey. These are the two things that prevent buyers connecting with sellers earlier in their buying journey. The self-serve, let's look at this one first. Self-serve is just what we call the third generation of buying. We've gone through 3 generations of buying. In the beginning, when we lived in caves, and in fact, right up to the 1940s, buying, selling was a very simple thing. If you wanted to buy something, you knew the person that was going to sell it. There was probably only one person in town. You went and you talked to them directly. A very simple transaction. In the 1940s, it started to get more complex. More information was required. There was more choice. And radio, TV, and the phone essentially gave you greater reach, gave buyers greater reach, sellers greater reach. That was the age of sales process. Then the internet came along, disrupted everything again, and we're in this third generation where buyers can get the information they need. And of course, they get it from the internet. When I was back in sales, to begin with, back in the early 80s, if a buyer wanted to know anything about our product, if they wanted to know anything about the company I work for, they would have to phone us and talk to us. There was no other way. They wanted the brochure. They didn't actually want to talk to a salesperson. They wanted the brochure. But there was a great expression in those days that the selling stops when the brochure is delivered, meaning the moment you give the brochure to the customer, that's the end of the transaction. They've then got the information. You've given up on consulting with them. And of course, the internet is the biggest brochure you could ever wish. So essentially, you've got buyers who can get or perceive they can get the information they want without talking to a salesperson. They can get all sorts of information, not just about your company, but about other people who have used your products and services. They can get best practices. They can network with people like them. So the third generation of buying is very, very different. It's a self-serve world. And now you've probably heard the statistic. People are saying that buyers don't connect with sellers till they're 50% of the way through the buying journey. I've now heard 70% and even further. We know, because we spend our life talking to buyers, they are well down their buying journey before they want to and before they seek out to talk to a salesperson. So that is causing this divide, this gap between buyers and sellers. The second of the two reasons, not often thought about as much as the self-serve word, but the increasing complexity of the end-to-end buying journey. What do I mean by that? Well, when was the last time you bought something in the corporate world? It is very difficult to buy things today. There's rarely a single decision maker. And when we talk to buyers about how they buy, they don't even know who made the decision. They often say a lot of people were involved. There's more alternatives, including doing nothing, more alternatives than ever before. Fully deployed resources. Organizations haven't got spare time, spare people, spare money sitting around for the next idea. They have fully deployed their resources. Everybody is 100% or more busy. All the available funds are gone, committed, etc. They have fully deployed their resources. So they know what they're doing and they're getting on with it. We've also got a far more inclusive decision-making process. The days of autocratic decisions are long behind us. People now, when we look at decision-making, there's far more people involved and it's a far more inclusive process, which means it's far harder. More people are involved than ever across the entire buying journey. People bring different perspectives. So just when you thought you had everybody in the boat heading in one direction, somebody else says, well, wait a minute, isn't that going to upset what we do, what we are? There's a higher risk aversion, change aversion than ever before. That is the result of a number of things, but because of the things we've just talked about, so much is going on that people don't want to take risks. They don't want to change things. So again, that's making buying something, acquiring something more and more difficult. And finally, as we get more people involved, there's more conflicting priorities and agendas. Everybody wants their idea to go first. So there it is. As you can see, buying has become a lot more difficult. Now, let me ask the question, when you look at that, maybe you've got your sales force, how many of those things are we helping the buyer with? If you're a buyer, how many times would you reach out to a salesperson and say, hey, I want your help. There's a lot of people involved in this decision-making process, and I'm not sure how to get everybody involved. Can you help me? That doesn't happen. The buyer generally perceives, 90+% of cases, the buyer perceives the salesperson has no value helping them through those various things. So if we look at the buying journey, and this is just a macro buying journey, my word, I'd never suggest that you use this as your buying journey, but it's a macro. It starts with awareness. I become aware of a new product or offering. I become aware of a challenge in my organization or an opportunity, competitive positioning, whatever it may be. I become aware of something I need to do something about. I then find something that I'm interested in. I explore and I find a product or service that is of interest to me. I then have to gain organizational commitment to that direction. I then can move into the buying, the acquisition, and then the adoption process. So if we look at just those 5 kind of macro stages across the buying journey, let's look at where do buyers say they spend their time. So as Anthony said, we talk to buyers every day. This is what we hear. To become aware of something is no effort whatsoever. They very easily become aware of whatever it is. Gaining an interest in something. And if you're out there selling a particular product or service, gaining an interest in your product or service, a sincere interest, doesn't take that much effort. Gaining organizational commitment to do something is a mountain to climb. The acquisition process of how they actually buy it, not that difficult. And then adoption ranges. Adoption could be something very simple, or it could be something extremely challenging that could take several years. So adoption varies. But look at that. The mountain to climb is in commitment. What's going on? What's going on in the buying journey at that time? These are some of the things that people tell us are the activities they get involved in. And you can look at, of course, it depends on what they're looking at buying, but alignment of stakeholders, gaining the initial buy-in, change management is huge. Even if you're going to just change one thing about a process, about a workflow, about where the buttons may be on a product to push, whatever it is, you're going to change something. People are change averse. Getting the necessary buy-ins, the timing of how things are going to happen, the training needs. So the list goes on and on in terms of what people do and when they do it. And these things may happen several times with buying journey. They may need to align stakeholders at the beginning and several times during the buying journey. They may look at, how are we going to install this? How are we going to make sure people use this? And then they're going to have to come back and do an adoption or implementation plan with a training plan. So these are the things that buyers tell us they get involved in throughout their buying journey. So when we talk to people about how they buy, these are the kind of things they tell us. Now, here's the shocking statistic. How many of those things are salespeople typically engaged in? Less than 10%. Now, when you think about it, that long list of buying activities, every one of them is going to impact the outcome. Every one of them is going to impact, will the company buy and what they'll buy? And sales is only engaged in less than 10% of them. So 90% of the buying activity, there is no salesperson involved and there is no influence coming from the seller. To me, that's incredible. And it's also a huge opportunity, which is what we're going to talk about. But the story gets worse. Many salespeople try to convince themselves, their managers, and possibly even their customers that they can shortcut the process. Hey, there's no need to get purchasing involved in this. You know, I had a customer the other day and they bypassed purchasing because this is a no-brainer. We'll just get this approved. Or we work a lot in the healthcare field. And now in the healthcare field, a lot of people have got what we call a value analysis committee. And the value analysis committee on behalf of a hospital or hospital network will look at every new protocol, every new medical device, every new drug, everything that's new. The value analysis committee will look at it and decide whether that is good for the hospital or not. Well, salespeople say, well, we can bypass the value analysis committee. We've got such a physician strength that everybody, this is a no-brainer. We can bypass the value analysis committee. They're trying to shortcut the process. Maybe in edge condition, it will work, but in 95% of the conditions, it won't work. So you've got salespeople trying to leap over these things, minimize them, trivialize them, shortcut them. This is one of the biggest reasons you see forecast accuracy as bad as it is, because the salespeople are not acknowledging all of the things that have to happen in the buying journey. So not only are they not influencing them, they're not engaged in them, they're trying to bypass them, which to me is just crazy when you understand this. So we've got to reverse this up. We've got to change this. There's an urgent need then to reconnect sellers to buyers across the entire buying journey, not just at those moments of acquisition, but we need our salespeople to be involved early in the buying journey and throughout the buying journey to influence it, to change the course of events. So I've used these two words before, I'm going to use them again, value and relevancy. We've got to look at how do we bring value and relevancy across that buying journey to all of those buying activities. This is way beyond providing information about your offering. This is way beyond talking about what your product does and how it does it. What we've got to do is how can we influence, support, and engage in as many of those buying activities as possible. Now, there's an irony here. There's a huge irony that we can take advantage of. The irony is that in many cases, this will be the first time that prospect has bought what we sell. So let's, whatever it may be, we sell a medical device, a database, whatever it may be. This could be the first time that that organization has bought that. And they're going to try and find their way through that maze. They're going to try and find their way through all of those activities. And they're going to stop, start, they're going to go back, they're going to meander through that maze. But the interesting thing is we've seen many people buy. I hope we see many people buy what we sell. So we should be experts at how companies buy what it is we sell. We should have the knowledge of what challenges are going to be faced and how to meet those challenges. So we've got the knowledge of how buyers buy. So that means there's a huge opportunity. We've got to help our buyers buy. We can give them a roadmap of how to navigate that buying journey. We can talk to them about what's going to happen, who needs to be involved. So we can help them across their buying journey. We can add value and relevancy, and there it is. We've got to add value and relevancy, but it's rarely about the offering. It's not talking to them more about how great our offering is, how great our product is, and what our service may do for them. It's not about that. It's not about the offering. It's not about the ROI. The two things that we seem to dwell on again and again and again. It's about helping them through all of those other buying activities. And of course, positively influencing, changing the course of events, which we can only do if we are engaged in that buying journey. So with that, let's look at the 5-point plan. 5-point plan: decode the buying journey, optimize the buying journey, determine how we can help, adopt precision marketing, and then enable sales. Let's go through those one at a time. Decoding the buying journey. This is where it all starts. Our research, and we've been doing this for 18, 19 years, our research clearly shows that buyers in a particular market, when they buy a specific product or service, behave in remarkably similar ways. If they don't, it's a separate marketplace. So within a marketplace, you can decode the buying journey. You can see who's going to get involved, when they're going to get involved, what their agendas are going to be. You can look at what motivations and concerns people have. You can look at what alternatives, including doing nothing, that people are going to look at. You can understand the pressures that are going to occur throughout that buying journey. And you can look at their decision-making process, who's going to get involved and how they're going to make decisions. You can decode all of this and map it. And that's exactly what we're recommending. Map all the activities along the way. And the word all is capitalized there because this goes way beyond purchasing. This is not about just purchasing. This is about, from that awareness, what happens right the way through the buying journey. It's beyond what you actually see. Now, working with a lot of organizations, I often see that people now are looking at buying journeys, which is great. But what they do is they tend to take their sales process, whether it's formal or not, and they look at what they think the customer is doing when they're selling to them. I'm going to tell you that's little more than useless, unfortunately, because that is so far from what actually happens. You've got to look at what the customer does in terms of the end-to-end, all of those activities, beyond where you may be involved, beyond what you see, beyond what you'd like them to do, but all those things that happen. And of course, always remember, they're not planning to buy. We're of course planning to sell. They're not planning to buy, they're planning to use. So they're looking further ahead than buying. They're looking at how are they going to actually use this, adopt it, all the change management that's involved around that. So when you look at the activities end to end, including right from awareness through to adoption, use, value realization. So the first thing is we've got to understand the buying journey. We've got to decode the buying journey and understand what's going to happen throughout the buying journey. With that, we can look to optimize it. How can we help buyers buy better? Now, this is not the optimistic shortcuts. This isn't, oh, well, we shouldn't get purchasing involved and whatever it may be. This is looking at what can we do to help buyers buy more intelligently. Now, usually this means that we know that somewhere on the line, they're going to hit this challenge. Somebody somewhere is going to say, yes, but what if we did this? Or yes, but how do we train everybody? Or doesn't that change our workflow? Whatever it may be, we know or should know that that's going to happen. So how can we optimize that? Usually bringing it forward, getting people to do things earlier in the buying journey rather than going through the buying journey, hitting them, and then having to worry about them. How can we help our buyer bring that forward into the buying journey, be more prepared, and have a planned approach to handle all of those issues? So it means bringing the barriers forward. Now, an odd thing is salespeople don't like to do that. Salespeople would much prefer to see that there's no barriers. They'd like to think this is the one that's going to just fly through the system and it ends with a purchase order. They don't want to bring up the challenges and barriers. And that, again, is precisely the wrong thing to do. Again, that will lead to forecast failure because you didn't think quality control was going to get involved. You didn't think purchasing was going to get involved. Whatever it may be, they do. So it means talking to your prospect earlier about those challenges, bringing them forward and managing them through it. So that's optimizing the buying journey. Then look at how you can help. How can you bring value and relevancy to those activities? So if we've done this correct, we have a long list of the buying activities that customers are going to go through. Thinking about change management, thinking about training, thinking about how they're going to get adoption, thinking about how they're going to get everybody on side, thinking about how they're going to handle maybe the questions coming from their quality department or whatever it may be. How can we bring value and relevancy? How can we help them with those things? How can we help them with their training? How can we help them with their change management? How can we help them get stakeholders on side? How can we help them buy? So we've got to look at each of those buying activities and think about how can we bring value and relevancy to that activity? And these are some of the things that we see. Implementation planning. How can we help them implement? How can we help them handle the implications? Well, if we're going to put this new product here, then we'll need to do this, this, and this. How can we help them do this, this, and this? How do we gain alignment? Handling pushback. Integrating. Here's another big, big topic. How does our product or service integrate to what they do today, whatever that may be? That may be technology integration. It may not be, just be integrate into workflow. User training. And then the big, big one, change management. How can we help them with the change management that's going to be there when they adopt our product or service? So the third thing, determine how we can help. Look at all those buying activities. How can we bring value and relevancy to each one? Adopt precision marketing. Precision marketing, I believe, is absolutely the future. How do we align our messaging and content to each individual role and each step of the buying journey? As our buyers go through the buying journey, it's an education process. They learn as they go through there. Things change. What they want, what they do, what they think will change. So how do we aim our messaging at each individual role at each stage of the buying journey? And that's such a far cry from mass marketing. We're not just pushing out messages here. We are using precision to provide just the right message, just the right content at just the right time to just the right person. It means switching from talking about our product to how people buy it. Take a look at your content. Seriously, take a look at your content, your marketing content. How much of it is about your product or offering, and how much is it about how to buy it? How much of it is aimed at helping people buy it? So also in content, more at the friction than the value proposition. We're so hung up with value propositions. Buyers get the value. They need help with their challenges. So aim marketing content to help people with the challenges that they're going to find in the buying journey. And finally, enabled sales. Sales have got to know, got to be able to know where a buyer is in that buying journey. They've got to know what they're likely thinking and doing and what they're concerned with because of where they are in the buying journey. And then sales need to know, how am I relevant and how can I add value? Way beyond talking about the offering, way beyond the product or service itself. How do I add value at each of those stages of the buying journey? We've got to provide them with content and tools that provide insight to the right individual at the right time. We've got to be able to personalize content. Again, the days of mass marketing are long over. We've got to be able to personalize, individualize content so we are enabling sales to deliver the right message, to be valuable and relevant at the right time in the right person. And then we've got to solve the MQL to SQL dilemma. Marketing leads can't end with, we've done a great webinar, download this, and then we're going to pass the leads of all the people that downloaded that over to sales. What can sales say? Sales can say, can I help you in any way? Did you download? We've got to think past that. We've got to aim our marketing to the sales conversation. We've got to take it right the way through. So how do we enable salespeople to have a conversation where they can be valuable and relevant to the buyer based on where they are in the buying journey? So I talk about designing marketing through to the sales conversation, making sure we're setting up salespeople to talk not just about, did you download our white paper, were things great, but have a meaningful conversation with that buyer. So those are the 5 points. Decode the buying journey, understand how buyers buy, optimize the buying journey, determine how we can help, then precision marketing and enabling sales in this new world to reconnect with buyers by being valuable and relevant through the buying journey. So 5 key takeaways. Map the market's end-to-end buying journey. It all starts with understanding and getting a real intimate, deep knowledge of how your customers are buying. Then looking as they go through that buying journey, what are they concerned about? What are they actually doing? What are they concerned about? Now, keep in mind, you probably know that buying journey better than the buyer does because you've seen it many, many times. Pivot from focusing on your offering to how to buy it. So it's not about why somebody should buy, it's about how they're going to buy. And then finally, always these words, valuable and relevant. Think about how you can provide value and relevance to specific individuals through their buying journey. That goes back to where we started. If the buyer sees that you can add value to them, they will want to connect. If the buyer sees that you bring no value, you are not relevant, they can get that information in a much quicker, easier way, thanks to the internet or whatever, they're going to go there. But if you can help them buy, if you can bring value and relevance, they will want to connect with you.